Hey everyone, today we are figuring out where every character in the game is from. Now obviously we have general ideas of where they are from due to their nationalities, but I'm going to try and be a bit more specific about their location. Okay, so first off we have Bubba Sawyer. Bubba Sawyer is from Texas, as the name The Texas Chainsaw Massacre so suggests. Apparently the specific place is called Muerto County in Texas. This is a fictional county, but nevertheless we can place Bubba in Texas. Similar to Bubba, Billy lives on Coldwind Farm for most of his life. As his inspirations draw from Bubba of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we can assume that Coldwind Farm also resides in Texas, although it's unclear the exact part of Texas, as it's stated in the Coldwind Farm lore that the farm itself spans 2 counties. We know that the plague is from ancient Babylonia, which was a state in ancient Mesopotamia. In the modern day, the city of Babylon itself would have been in Iraq. The Trapper is from a town called Weeks, which is near to another town named Weatherfield, which is near Seattle and within Washington in the United States, meaning Weeks and the Trapper are from somewhere in Washington. The retired Autohaven Wreckers offering was named Virginia Plate, suggesting that the wrecker's yard was located in Virginia, and that Philip worked there. We can further presume that he lives in this area also, however we do know that he was originally from Nigeria in Africa. Crotus Pren does not have an exact location, but due to Sally's husband being a lumberjack, it's highly possible that Nurse also comes from Virginia in the United States. The clown is part of a traveling circus, although he mainly resides nearby to Father Campbell's chapel, which is in the same area as Crotus Pren. So Clown is also possibly from Virginia in the United States, or at least currently resides there. Again, this is kind of a weak connection, so let me know if you have any better ideas, but I think Virginia is a highly possible location for them both, as well as the Crotus Pren Asylum. Okay, for Dwight, on one of his cosmetics we can see an 8, which looks reminiscent of how numbers are presented when referring to routes or highways. Going off of this, we can assume the gas station that Dwight was working on was at Route 8. There's a Route 8 located within Wisconsin. This would work too, as we know that Dwight is from America, presumably North America. There's a bunch of cities that Dwight and Pete 22 could be from within Wisconsin, so I think this is what I'm going with. All we know is that Meg is from America. One cosmetic mentions a Golden Eagle summer camp, which is a real thing, although I doubt it's referencing this. The camp is located in California. Now we do get a better idea of where she's from within her tome lore when she goes to vandalize a police car. It's mentioned that it's at the Colorado Police Department, meaning she's probably actually in Colorado in the US, so I'm going with that, particularly as she's stated during this tome lore to be competing in the state championships. Okay, so for Claudette, we know that she's Canadian. We also know that she lived in Montreal for most of her life, as it states in her lore that it was a big decision for her to leave Montreal. It's further stated that she gets an early scholarship at a great college. We know that she's a scientist, or more so a botanist, so this great college is potentially Berkeley in the US. This was the highest result when it came to botany courses, so that's my prediction. However, I'm still going to mark her down as Montreal, as that's where she's been for about 95% of her life prior. Also, that's the one we can be the most sure about. Jake's brother is mentioned to have attended Yale University, which is in New Haven, Connecticut. Jake is stated to drop out of college and then go off the grid and go into the wilderness. It's plausible that Jake did this within Connecticut, as apparently it's the 14th most forested US state, so I'll happily go with Connecticut, although he likely does move around quite a bit and so ventures further than Connecticut. Nia is originally stated to be from Hughes, Sweden, later moving to the US where she has resided for a few years. I would argue as she's been in Sweden for 16 out of the 18 or so years of her life, we can just put her down as being from Yo, Sweden. However, as we know she tags Crotus Pren, she too is possibly in Virginia. The name of her new city that she moves to is called Fall City. Fall City is a real place in Nebraska, and so she could possibly also be from here. This also means that both Nurse and Clown are possibly in Nebraska also, due to their associations with Crotus Pren. Laurie and Myers are from Haddonfield, Illinois, in the United States. Although this is a fictional location, there is a real Haddonfield in the US which is instead located in New Jersey. However, the films were not filmed there, so the most specific we can be is Illinois. Ace is noted in his lore to have sharp Italian looks within the lore. However, it does state that he grew up in Argentina. We then know that he moves to the US and is stated to be a high roller, leading me to believe he goes to somewhere like Las Vegas in Nevada. Bill resides in Fairfield, Pennsylvania in the United States during the events of Left 4 Dead. Fairfield is a real place in Pennsylvania, however it's just a borough and not the much larger city that we see within the game. We know that Feng is Chinese, and she leaves home when she's fairly young. There's no definite for where she goes after leaving home, but there are mentions of Tokyo, Akihabara, and Harajuku, meaning potentially she moves to Japan when joining her esports team. Seoul is also mentioned in a cosmetic, which is in South Korea. I get the feeling that both of these places are just places she may have gone to when she was going to different competitions and such though, and weren't permanent homes. I presume she stayed in China. David's lore mentions that he grew up in Manchester in the UK, and further his tome lore is named Manchester Mashup. So yeah, I think it's probably Manchester for David. A Nightmare on Elm Street takes place within the town of Springwood, Ohio, within the United States. Although it is not a real location, we can just mark it down as Ohio still. When looking for the location of the Saw films, I struggled quite a bit to get a definite answer for where Tapp and Amanda would be. Some said New Jersey, others Chicago, others Atlanta. I also saw New York and San Antonio. Apparently it's a fictional city that the films are set in. And I think what I'm going with is Chicago, Illinois, as that seemed to be the most agreed upon across multiple wikis and forums and such. Kate is stated to be from the state of Pennsylvania, traveling around to folk music competitions in Nashville, Tennessee. When she becomes old enough to drive, she then goes across a lot of the US. As her home state is Pennsylvania and most of her life is spent there, we can say that though. However, as she was released with The Clown, the natural hollow that she mentions as her favorite place to play the guitar and sing could possibly be in Nebraska, and so she's probably taken by the entity there. Adam is originally from Rollington Town, Kingston, Jamaica, going on to study at Jamaica University also. He later resides in Kagoshima, Japan as a teacher. Again, as he only moves to Japan for a year or so, I'm going to put him down as being from Kingston, Jamaica. Both Jeff and the Legion are from the town of Ormond in Canada. Ormond's lore mentions that Ormond is in Alberta, a province of Canada, so we can be a little bit more specific, I guess. Both are still also taken in Ormond though, as Jeff returns after leaving when he gets taken. According to the DBD wiki, Jane is based off of Oprah, and Oprah is from Mississippi in the United States, so this seems like a feasible location for Jane to be from. As Jane is a celebrity with a talk show and beauty and fashion products, I'd be inclined to think she probably lives somewhere like Los Angeles or New York, where the majority of American talk shows are filmed. I'm gonna go with New York, as she's likely resided there for most of her life. Ash Williams was born in and resides in Elk Grove, Michigan, during the events of the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show. He does move around, but later in the show he does settle down again and remain within Elk Grove for the majority of the final season. Elk Grove, however, is a fictional city. Technically, he does get taken in an apocalypse during the very end of the show, however this is still the apocalyptic Elk Grove presumably, so we can still say he gets taken from there. Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve reside in the fictional town of Hawkins, which we know from multiple references throughout the show is in Indiana in the United States. Although there is a real-life town also named Hawkins in Texas, this is not where the fictional one is situated. Now, whilst I could say the Demogorgon is also from Hawkins, this isn't quite true, but I guess you could invert the map and say that the demo is from the upside-down version of Hawkins, Indiana. Yui is stated to grow up in Hida, a city in Japan. It's mentioned that Yui leaves home to the city of Nagoya, Japan. Further, we later get a mention of the village named Shirakawa, also in Japan, when she recalls racing scooters and getting injured. We can also guess that the All Japan Moto Championship mentioned in her lore is based in Suzuka, where a similarly named championship took place in 2019. So she definitely travels around when attending competitions and such, but we can say that she is definitely from Hida and possibly is taken in one of these cities that are mentioned in her lore. Zarina is stated to be brought up in a Lebanese household in Brooklyn, a borough of New York City. It also mentions Bay Ridge, a neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. So this is kind of cool actually, we get the exact neighborhood she lived in. She then goes to investigate the Hellshire Penitentiary in Nebraska later in her lore, which is the same one that Deathslinger was holed up in, and this is also where she gets taken. Caleb is stated to reside within the American Midwest. We further know of a town that he's been to named Glenvale, which is his map in the game, and also possibly his hometown. He does move around a bit as he's a bounty hunter basically, but he resides in or near Glenvale probably. The Marshal's Badge add-on mentions that it is from the corpse of a lawman from Arizona territory, so we can presume he's from Arizona. However, we know that from Zarina's lore that Hellshire Penitentiary, where he stays for most of his days, is in Nebraska, meaning we can probably situate him there instead, at least for when he's taken. so Zarina, New York, and Deathslinger, Nebraska. Within the games, Cheryl mainly interacts with the town of Silent Hill, which is in Maine in the US. However, the film set Silent Hill in West Virginia. We have Cheryl's Silent Hill 3 iteration though, so I'm going with Maine. Pyramid Head, however, is a different situation as he kind of exists within James Sunderland's mind, so his location is within the mind of James Sunderland, and so I guess that still technically means he is from Silent Hill, as that's where James Sunderland is when he appears. Alessa and Lisa can also be placed here as they are both bound to Silent Hill. Cybil Bennett is from Brahms, a nearby town to Silent Hill. In both the lore of Felix and Elodie, Dyer Island is mentioned as a location. In Blight's lore we find out that Dyer Island is off the coast of India, and from Felix and Elodie's lore we know that it is a place where the Imperiati meet, who are basically a rich group of people who are searching for the entity and its realm. Prior to this though, Felix is mentioned to be from Coburg, Germany. He does later return to Dyer Island and attempts to restore it, but I think it's fair to say he is from Coburg, Germany still. Elodie is stated to be born into a Parisian household, with her parents being from Madagascar. She's mentioned to spend a lot of time there, collecting and researching. From what it seems, she also gets taken by the entity whilst in some catacombs in Paris. Both Yun-Jin and Ji-woon are from South Korea, likely the capital Seoul, as Yun-Jin's lore mentions how she moves into a penthouse in Seoul, as this is during her time as producer for No Spin. And the Trickster. We can presume that Ji-woon is also in Seoul at this time. This is further backed up by Yun-Jin's Seoul Sights outfit, as well as Ji-woon's of the same collection. Now, Jill and Leon both reside in Raccoon City during Resident Evil 2 and 3. Raccoon City is fictional, although there are some ways to get a good idea of where the city resides. Raccoon City's skyline is apparently based on that of Montreal, Quebec, which by the way is also the location of Behavior's headquarters. Kinda cool. However, from what we understand within the story, Raccoon City is an American city, not a Canadian one. On the Resident Evil wiki, Raccoon City is described as a small industrialized city located in Arklay County, an isolated mountain county in the Midwest United States. This leads most to believe that Raccoon City resides in Missouri, due to this description. We can further place Chris and Claire Redfield here too, as he is in Stars alongside Jill, and Claire may not be exactly here, but she is close by at a college, so I would say this is near enough. Nemesis we can also place here, as he spends most of his life within Raccoon City chasing Jill. Although apparently he was created, or the tyrant type was created by Umbrella Europe, and not the US Umbrella. However, Umbrella Europe spans 6 locations, meaning we can't pinpoint which he is from, making a simple way to place him to say he is from Raccoon City. Lisa is said to have grown up in a small village isolated from the rest of civilization. There's no mention directly of places, but we do know that she lives somewhere close to the backwater swamp. We know that Hag is American, and due to the swampy area as well as the paddle steamer boats, we can presume she's possibly from Louisiana, where there are lots of bayous and similar looking swampy areas. This is also where she's taken. If we pin Doctor's location and residence to being nearby to that of Larry's Memorial Institute, the place where he spends a large amount of time at, we can assume that Doctor is from Illinois, as Larry's is said to be situated 3 miles south of Michaelstown, Illinois, in the United States. This is not a real location, but it is where we can assume Doctor resides, traveling those 3 miles into Larry's in order to work. So Illinois in the US. Huntress is Russian, but we don't know exactly where in Russia she is from. Later, Huntress resides in the Red Forest, which we find in her tome lore is located nearby to Chernobyl, which is in Ukraine. It was named the Red Forest due to how the environment changed after the 1986 disaster, where a nuclear power plant exploded in Chernobyl, making the surrounding area radioactive and dangerous. As Huntress is taken prior to this though, the forest remains normal in appearance. This is the best assumption we have for it at least. Also because this would make it fairly close to where Russia is. Yeah, this is really just our best guess. Ghostface commits murders within the lore in the town of Roseville. Roseville in real life is in California in the United States. It does state in his lore that he zigzagged between small towns from Utah to Pennsylvania. However, I think the real town of Roseville makes sense, meaning he's currently in California. I think this is the best guess we have really. It's mentioned from Spirit's lore that she is from Kagawa, Japan. This is also where the family estate is presumably situated, associated with her attending Takamatsu, a private university. This is also a real university. I would expect, as the Yamaoka family estate map is in Kagawa, then the Oni would have also been situated there mainly, although his is really across all of Japan. As it's stated, he tries to cleanse the land of false samurai. Blight is mentioned to be of Scottish origin. It mentions, however, that he attends the London School of Medicine in his adulthood. He then goes to Dyer Island during the Opium War, which is off the coast of India according to his lore. So you can assume in real life it's a similar island off the coast of India. We could pin him as Scotland due to him originating from there. It seems like his life is spent pretty half and half between both Scotland and Dyer Island though. The twins are stated in their lore to be from France. It's likely they spend most of their time around Marseille, as Charlotte's weapon is named the Blade of Marseille. This weapon also has references to the gutters, which is likely a reference to the sewers which Charlotte lived in for a while whilst trying to stay undetected. So yeah, Marseille seems like a fairly good guess, although like a lot of the other killers, these two move around quite a bit. Alright, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and please do drop any additions or corrections down below. Thanks, and goodbye.